that probably does need to be looked into, a bit more, because no doubt all the sort of mainstream sort of service providers will sort of say that there has been a range of sort of uptake into the services and so on. And, I don't know whether, things like domestic violence falls into that, alcohol abuse, all the sort of things that have, rocketed a bit since, lockdown.
Yeah. The next one is services for those with disabilities.
Yeah. My own 3 children, or 3 of my 4 children, were hearing impaired. So there wasn't really a sort of like a deaf community, massive network in sort of Sutton Coldfield. So any services that they would sort of access would be in other places across sort of Birmingham. So probably as much as anywhere else, I'd say.
Yeah. The next one is housing. And, you can sort of interpret this however you want, whether you think there ought to be more social housing, or if you've got any comments about affordable housing in the area, anything like that. Do you think that's something that Sutton needs to prioritise moving forward?
I'm definitely one for mixed housing provision. In terms of ownership sort of models and things. House prices in Sutton are on the sort of high end. But it's also come to question in sort of Sutton as to how many, where is the space to create new housing? And if it's anything to do with, a little bit of green space being sort of taken up, you'd get a sort of massive sort of lobbies that say, no way, this is some Coalfield type of thing. But, developers are buying up swathes of housings and knocking them down and building more expensive houses. So from the profit sort of motive. So I don't know what the spread of housing association properties there are in Sutton Coalfield. I'd expect that there are. But whether we need more of those, because you do get this thing, the same that you get in sort of, attracted rural areas, that the place becomes outpriced for families who have grown up into the Sutton Coalfield and then feel that they need to move out. It's like, take my daughter for example, that she's in a 2-bedroom house, and her family was growing, so she sort of looked around, and for what she could actually get in place like sort of Fradley was twice as much as what you could get in Sutton Coalfield. So whether people who live in Sutton Coalfield, in terms of the younger ages, will need to go to other parts if they can't actually sort of afford, or if the parents can't give them a helping hand. But then that also then provides sort of housing sort of space for different communities to come in and acquire houses as well, who will find that their children are in the same sort of situation as maybe what the current Sutton Coalfield housing 10-year population is at the moment. So things like sort of starter homes, shared ownership, I'm sure in a place like this is sort of required. But there's a part of me that feels that there would be like a bit of a snooty attitude in Sutton Coalfield. I mean, across communities as to, social class type of issues, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. And the last one we have here is religion. Do you think that religion, or perhaps, like I know there's not a mosque, is there, in Sutton? Do you think that the development of, other religious institutions should be sort of built in Sutton Coalfield? Do you think there's a need for that?
Well, whenever there's been, people who are Muslim wanting to do something like that, for example, there was one just up the road here on the Birmingham sort of road where they'd acquired a couple of sort of bungalows and things, and then as soon as people get sort of wind of that this is what the intention actually is, it goes to that NIMBYism that on my sort of doorstep. And then all the other arguments get brought out. There's going to be loads of sort of traffic here. There's going to be sort of, praying at unsocial hours, etc., etc. And there's also no Gurdwara in St Coldfield as well. So people who are of the sort of Sikh faith or of the Hindu faith will go into sort of Handsworth, Hampstead Road, other parts of sort of Birmingham. So from that sort of side of sort of things, so if somebody was saying that there's been put up a new sort of church, there would not be the outcry as much as there would be as if there's going to be a mosque or a Gurdwara. So that's definitely a intolerance issue which needs to be sort of addressed. And that's where, the ability of people to actually meet people from other faiths and get an understanding and not just, automatically assume. It's like, one of my neighbours had sold their house and then moved up to St Marysley. And, so one or two people had heard on the sort of street that, it's going to be a Muslim family moving in. Not that there aren't any of the Muslim families on the street, but the automatic sort of assumption was that, it will be an extended family. Yeah.
Right,
and
okay.
then to find out, no, it's not an extended family, it's just a husband and wife with 3 kids.
Yeah.
It's like, they suddenly became acceptable. So that sort of intolerance, perception, racism still exists.
Definitely, yeah.
And it just doesn't exist from white communities. It exists from. There's also almost an attitude that I've made it here into the Sutton Coldfield, and I need to sort of keep it good for myself, whatever that means.
Right.
So if anything alien to you is seen to be sort of coming into your sort of landscape, it's resisted. But it only sort of changes when, people have that sort of interconnection and build sort of relationships, as it's sort of proved on my sort of street. But I would still avoid having a sort of debate about racial politics with people on the sort of street, as opposed to, if it needs to be addressed, if something is sort of said, then I would speak up, and I'm sure others would as well. And there might be support on the issue, but, what they sort of say about sort of religion and politics is, they can be fraught bedfellows type of thing.
Yeah. So finally, I'm sort of throwing this out. Is there any other priorities that you can think of that should be focused on in Sutton over the next 2 to 3 years? Anything that we haven't mentioned?
I think the whole coming together of sort of people and facilitating events and activities that cross communities can sort of participate in, even if it's like having some streets in sort of Sutton and some other sort of areas will have this sort of street sort of parties and things like that. Whether a campaign to get to know sort of people and your neighbours a lot more would be helpful, and from my experience, those things are always helpful.
It sounds like a fantastic thing to do as well as we come out of, COVID.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry.
There'll be those sort of people is, I just want to be left alone.
Yeah, I can imagine this. There'll be definitely people in in that mindset.
Engagements.
Yeah.